The evening began like many others. Soft lights glowed in our dining room. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air. We were gathered for a simple family meal. Laughter was light, a gentle hum around the table. Conversation flowed easily, touching on everyday things. The world outside, with its rush and its noise, felt far away. It was a pocket of peace, a familiar comfort. We expected nothing more than good food and quiet company. Little did we know, the ordinary was about to change. Suddenly, the old grandfather clock in the hall chimed. It was an hour later than we thought. A car door slammed outside, a sound that cut through the calm. Heavy footsteps approached the front door. They were uneven, slightly hurried footsteps. We exchanged puzzled glances across the table. Who could be arriving so late, unannounced? A sense of anticipation mixed with a little unease settled over us. The gentle hum of conversation stopped. All ears strained towards the hallway, listening. The doorbell did not ring. Instead, a sharp, decisive knock echoed through the house. Before anyone could rise, the door creaked open. There stood Uncle Bob. He was a silhouette at first, framed by the dim porch light. He wore his usual tweed jacket, slightly rumpled. His wild grey hair seemed to have a life of its own. In his hand he clutched a large, dark object. It looked heavy, important. A mischievous glint shone in his eyes as he stepped inside. Uncle Bob's presence instantly filled the room. It was not just his physical size. Though he was a tall man, it was an energy, a current of unseen possibilities that always surrounded him. The air seemed to crackle slightly. My younger cousins, usually restless, sat up straighter, their eyes fixed on him. Even my skeptical Aunt Carol paused, her fork halfway to her plate. The ordinary evening was over. Something extraordinary had just walked in. Uncle Bob had arrived, and with him, the promise of the unknown. Uncle Bob greeted us with a booming laugh. He apologized for his lateness, though he didn't seem very sorry. His gaze swept around the table, a general surveying his troops. Then he carefully placed the object he carried onto a small side table. It was a leather binder. Not just any binder, but binder. It was old, its dark brown leather cracked and worn smooth in places. The corners were scuffed, testament to countless journeys. It was bound shut with thick leather straps and brass buckles. This binder was legendary in our family. We'd seen it before on other memorable nights. Uncle Bob treated it with immense care, almost reverence. He would unbuckle it slowly, deliberately. His fingers, surprisingly nimble for their size, would trace the embossed patterns on its cover. He said it contained secrets, hidden truths, knowledge that the world was not yet ready for. Or perhaps knowledge the world had forgotten. He called it his Book of Unseen Things, a title that always sent a shiver down my spine. Inside, we knew, were not ordinary printed pages. There were handwritten notes in his spidery script. There were faded photographs of strange symbols on ancient stones. There were maps of places that did not appear on any modern atlas. Newspaper clippings, yellowed with age, told stories of unexplained events. Each item was a piece of a puzzle, a clue. Uncle Bob was the collector, the curator of these mysteries. He believed these fragments pointed to a much larger, hidden picture of our world. Tonight, the binder seemed thicker than usual. It lay on the side table like a sleeping beast. It pulsed with an almost tangible aura of mystery. Uncle Bob gestured towards it with a knowing smile. "I have some new findings," he announced, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Things that will make you question everything." We knew then that dinner would be more than just food. It would be a journey into the shadows, guided by Uncle Bob and his incredible, fascinating, leather-bound enigma. As we ate, Uncle Bob began his tales. He didn't need much prompting. He leaned forward, his voice low and intense. He spoke first of religious artifacts, not in the way a historian might, or a priest. He spoke of their hidden powers, their forgotten origins. He claimed many famous relics were not what they seemed. "Think of the Ark of the Covenant," he said, his eyes gleaming. "More than just a chest. It was a device, a piece of lost technology, capable of incredible feats and terrible destruction." He described ancient texts that hinted at such things, texts dismissed by mainstream scholars as mere myth or allegory. "They call it allegory because they cannot explain it," he stated firmly. He spoke of objects that could heal, objects that could communicate across vast distances, relics that were perhaps gifts or remnants from a civilization far older than our own. He suggested that these items were misunderstood, their true purpose deliberately obscured over centuries. He believed some were still out there, hidden away, their secrets guarded. He then told us about a journey he once took to a remote monastery high in some unnamed mountains. There, he claimed, he saw a fragment of a staff. It was said to have belonged to a prophet. It was made of a metal unknown to modern science. It hummed, Uncle Bob whispered, tapping his chest. I felt it here. A vibration, an energy. He said the monks who guarded it knew its power. They kept it safe from a world that would misuse it, or worse, deny its very existence. His words painted vivid pictures. We could almost see these powerful objects hidden in dusty vaults, guarded by silent keepers. Waiting. He wasn't just telling stories, he was challenging our understanding of faith, of history, of possibility. He made us wonder if the sacred objects we read about were more than just symbols. What if they were keys? Keys to understanding a past far more advanced, far more mysterious than we were ever taught in school. The chicken grew cold on our plates as we listened. Next, Uncle Bob turned the pages of his mental encyclopedia to lost civilizations. His voice resonated with a deep passion for this subject. Atlantis, he began, the name itself heavy with legend. It was not a myth. It was real, a vast, powerful empire. He described a society with knowledge that surpassed our own in many ways. They understood the Earth's energies. They built incredible structures. They harnessed powers we are only now beginning to rediscover or perhaps misinterpret. He didn't just talk about Atlantis. He spoke of other forgotten lands, Mu, Lemuria, Hyperborea, names that sounded like whispers from a dream. He presented maps from his binder, strange maps, showing coastlines that no longer existed. He pointed to underwater structures discovered by sonar. These are not natural formations, he insisted. These are the ruins of cities, drowned by cataclysm, erased from our history books. He believed great floods and earth changes had wiped these cultures away, but not without a trace. The survivors, Uncle Bob continued, his eyes scanning our faces, they spread across the globe. They carried with them fragments of their knowledge. He linked this to the sudden appearance of advanced agriculture in different parts of the world. He connected it to the sophisticated astronomical alignments found in ancient sites, places like Stonehenge or the pyramids of Egypt. These were not built by primitive people, he argued. They were built by those who remembered, those who knew the secrets of the stars and of the earth. He spoke of a global cataclysm around 12,000 years ago, a great flood, a pole shift, something that reset human civilization. He believed the evidence was everywhere. In myths of a worldwide deluge, in geological strata, in the sudden extinction of megafauna. We are a species with amnesia, he declared, his voice filled with conviction. We have forgotten a vast chapter of our own story, a chapter filled with wonders and with warnings. His theories painted a picture of a past, far deeper, far more complex than we imagined. Section 5. The Hidden Magic of the Mouse Kingdom. After the grand sweep of ancient history, Uncle Bob brought us to a more modern mystery. His eyes twinkled with a particular kind of mischief. Now, he said, leaning back and steepling his fingers, let's talk about Disney World. A few nervous giggles rippled around the table. Disney World. This seemed a strange detour from sunken cities and powerful relics. But Uncle Bob was serious. He believed the happiest place on Earth held its own share of carefully constructed secrets, and not just the fun, well-known ones. He spoke of the utilidors, the network of tunnels beneath the Magic Kingdom. They say it's for logistics, for cast members to move unseen, he began. And yes, that's true, but it's much more than that. He hinted at deeper levels, hidden sections, places where research of a different kind might occur. He talked about the precise geometry of the park's layout, the alignment of certain attractions with astronomical events. Walt Disney was a visionary, Uncle Bob stated. But he was also a man deeply interested in the esoteric, in the future, in control. Uncle Bob claimed Disney World was more than just an entertainment complex. He suggested it was a giant experiment, an experiment in crowd psychology, in shaping perceptions, in creating perfectly controlled environments. Think of the attention to detail, he urged. The smells pumped into Main Street, the specific colors used, the music, it's all designed to evoke certain emotions, certain responses. He wasn't necessarily saying it was sinister, but he implied it was far more calculated, far more influential than most people realized. He even touched upon strange symbols allegedly hidden in plain sight, in the architecture, in the designs of rides, even in the films. These are not accidental, he insisted, tapping a finger on the table for emphasis. They are messages for those who know how to look. He wove a tale of a hidden layer to the Disney empire, a layer connected to powerful organizations, to ideas about shaping society. He left us wondering if our cherished childhood memories were part of a much larger, more complex design. A design crafted by a mouse with surprisingly deep secrets. As Uncle Bob spoke, the reactions around the table were a fascinating study. My youngest cousin Tom was completely captivated. His fork lay forgotten, his mouth slightly agape. His eyes, wide and shining, never left Uncle Bob's face. Every word about lost cities, powerful artifacts, or secret Disney tunnels seemed to transport him to another world. He leaned forward, perched on the edge of his seat. He was absorbing it all, without a shred of doubt. For Tom, Uncle Bob was a true explorer, a hero revealing incredible truths. My sister Sarah, who loved fantasy novels, was similarly enthralled. She asked questions, eager for more details. But how did they build those underwater cities, Uncle Bob, she'd ask, or what kind of technology was in the Ark? She saw the connections to the myths and legends she read about. For her, Uncle Bob's theories provided a thrilling possibility. The idea that magic and advanced ancient knowledge might have been real. Her imagination was clearly ignited, painting vivid pictures based on his words. She looked at him with admiration. Even my usually reserved father seemed intrigued. He listened intently, a thoughtful expression on his face. He didn't interrupt, didn't challenge. He just absorbed the information. Perhaps he was weighing the possibilities. Or maybe he was simply enjoying the sheer power of his brother's storytelling. He would occasionally nod slowly, as if considering a complex chess move. Knew Bob's passions, his lifelong quest for these hidden narratives. There was a respect in his gaze, even if belief wasn't fully there. The dinner itself had become secondary. The food sat largely untouched. The room was quiet, save for Uncle Bob's resonant voice and the occasional soft gasp or murmured question. He had created a spell, a bubble of wonder that enveloped us. He painted worlds so vividly, so convincingly, that for a time they felt real. He made us feel like we were on the verge of a great discovery, like the veils of ordinary reality were thinning, allowing glimpses of something far more extraordinary just beyond. And not everyone at the table was completely swept away, however. My Aunt Carol, a practical woman with a no-nonsense approach to life, maintained an air of polite skepticism. She listened, yes, but her brow was often furrowed. She would occasionally purse her lips, especially when Uncle Bob's claims became particularly grand. She believed in facts, in evidence that could be held and measured. Ancient astronauts and secret Disney societies were a bit much for her pragmatic worldview. She was trying to be respectful, but her doubt was clear. My older brother Mark, a university student studying engineering, was more direct in his quiet disbelief. He didn't speak much, but his occasional subtle eye roll did not go unnoticed, at least by me. He would sometimes take out his phone, discreetly searching for counter-arguments or scientific explanations for the phenomena Uncle Bob described. He believed in logic, in the scientific method. While he found Uncle Bob entertaining, he clearly categorized these tales as fascinating fiction, not as factual accounts of a hidden reality. He saw patterns, not conspiracies. Once, Aunt Carol gently interjected. "But Bob," she said softly, "where is the concrete proof for these lost civilizations? The kind of proof that other archaeologists would accept?" Uncle Bob smiled patiently. "Ah, Carol," he replied, "the proof is there, but it is often ignored or misinterpreted. Mainstream science can be very resistant to ideas that challenge its established doctrines." He spoke of suppressed discoveries, of academics who risked their careers by stepping outside the accepted narrative. His answer, though eloquent, didn't quite satisfy her need for tangible evidence. The atmosphere, therefore, was not one of blind acceptance. It was a dynamic mix. There was the wide-eyed wonder of the younger ones, the curious engagement of others, and the gentle, sometimes not so gentle, skepticism from a few. This blend made the evening even more compelling. It wasn't a lecture to a room full of believers. It was a debate, a challenge. Uncle Bob's theories were like stones dropped into a still pond. They created ripples of thought, of discussion, and of doubt, which spread outwards to touch everyone present. As the evening drew towards its close, Uncle Bob saved one of his most intriguing items for last. He carefully unstrapped his leather binder. He leafed through its contents, his brow furrowed in concentration. Finally, he pulled out a large folded piece of parchment. It was not truly parchment, but a very old, brittle paper, yellowed and creased. He spread it carefully on the table, pushing aside plates and glasses. It was a map, but not like any map we'd ever seen before. The map depicted a familiar coastline. South America, perhaps, or Africa, but it was subtly wrong. The shapes were distorted, some land masses larger, others smaller, and there in the middle of a vast ocean, where only water should be, was an island. A large island with strange symbols drawn upon it. "This," Uncle Bob announced, his voice hushed, "is a copy of a map found in an ancient library, a library long since destroyed." He claimed it depicted the world as it was before the last great cataclysm, before the coastlines changed. But it was not just the land masses that were startling. In the corner of the map there was a complex astronomical chart. It showed constellations, but one star was circled with lines radiating from it. "This star," Uncle Bob explained, pointing with a steady finger, "is one that modern astronomers say is relatively insignificant, barely visible. But to the people who drew this map, it was immensely important." He suggested this star was a marker, a guide, perhaps even a destination or an origin point for ancient mariners, or even something more. He then connected this map to a legend of a seafaring people who came from a sinking land. They navigated by this forgotten star. They carried their knowledge to new shores. He proposed that this map and others like it were remnants of that knowledge, proof of a sophisticated understanding of geography and astronomy, lost to us, then rediscovered in fragments. He left us staring at the strange lines and symbols, wondering if this old piece of paper truly held a key to a forgotten epoch, to a celestial guide now ignored. As Uncle Bob carefully folded his ancient map and repacked his leather binder, a thoughtful silence settled over the room. The remnants of dinner lay forgotten. The initial excitement had mellowed into a deeper contemplation. His stories, his theories, his passionate conviction had left their mark. He had not necessarily convinced everyone of every detail, but he had certainly succeeded in making us question. He made us wonder about the accepted narratives we so often take for granted. What if there was more? He rose to leave, promising more revelations on his next visit. "There are always more layers to uncover," he said with a knowing wink. "The truth is a vast ocean, and we have only dipped our toes in it." As he walked out into the cool night air, it felt as though he took some of an unseen world with him. Yet he also left a great deal behind. He left us with images of sunken cities, of powerful, misunderstood relics, of hidden messages in the most unexpected places. He left us with a sense of mystery. For days after conversations would return to Uncle Bob's visit, my younger cousins drew pictures of Atlantis. My sister searched for books on ancient symbols. Even Aunt Carol admitted that some of his points about forgotten history were interesting to consider, though she quickly added a caveat about needing more evidence. The seeds of curiosity had been sown. The idea that our world might be older, stranger, and more complex than we are taught was a powerful one. It lingered in our minds. The questions Uncle Bob raised did not have easy answers. Perhaps they were never meant to. His purpose, it seemed, was not to provide all the solutions. It was to ignite the spark of inquiry, to encourage us to look beyond the surface, to dare to imagine different possibilities. The dinner with Uncle Bob was more than just a meal. It was an invitation to keep searching, to keep questioning, and to remain open to the idea that incredible secrets might still be waiting to be unveiled. And we knew with certainty that his next visit would bring even more.